Welcome to day 267 of our Bible reading plan. We are now towards the end of the Old Testament, and today's reading is on Micah from the first chapter to the seventh chapter. I'll just summarize from the first chapter. Micah addresses both the north and southern kingdoms, and he says that their capital cities, Samaria and Jerusalem, were sort of the hubs, the seeds of corruption, and they had actually infected the rest of the kingdoms because of what was happening there. The two things that are highlighted here is that there is a lot of perversion of worship because they were worshipping idols at the time, and also injustice that was happening in both these kingdoms. Chapter 2, what we see is that these are warnings to those who are wealthy and had power, but used it to abuse others. It says that here specifically that their wealth is going to be, and their land is going to be given to others, and they're not even going to have descendants who will then inherit their land, because it will be given to other people, and there will be total destruction of them even and their birth line. From verses 6 to 11, we hear that so the messages that were being given by the prophets and Micah himself were messages that were very harsh about how God is going to punish them. And the people were not really receptive of these messages. They did not like them, and they did not perceive them as what they were. They were meant to be a way of getting them to follow the right way, to obey God and do what is right. It was meant to be a parent disciplining a child so that a child can then learn and do the right things, but the people were not receptive. They would have rather chosen to have positive messages. So this is what this chapter is about, sort of trying to explain that it is an expression of love, not necessarily just negativity that they were hearing. Then chapter 3, we hear how Micah is calling out the leaders for the evil that they do and that they direct towards the people, which of course did not please God. He is calling out the false prophets and telling them that their time of lies will be replaced by humiliation and disgrace, because they are the ones whom when people are doing wrong, they are telling them how everything is going well, how the prophets who were speaking negatively, they sort of downplaying their messages and not wanting them to be taken seriously. So it was also not really pleasant to God for these false prophets. So they're being called out here. What is also interesting in this chapter is that we also see that Micah is declaring openly that he carries God's message, and he can boldly call out the evil that is happening in the kingdoms. He has the spirit of God in him, and that is why he can speak of the sin and the evil that is happening. He knows that he has God's backing, and he will not stop calling a spade because things were not going right and someone needed to tell them. So that is what he was speaking of, that he has God's spirit of truth. And then in chapter 4, Micah speaks of the future kingdom that will be ruled by God himself, and which life will be peaceful. This kingdom will be for all nations, and all will serve only one God. So he was speaking of a time after the difficulties would have happened, the afflictions, the exile, the destruction of their kingdoms. He speaks of a time after that God will again restore. He speaks also of hope, that they should be hopeful. They should hold on to the promises of God, because their story doesn't end at the destruction, but God will, as part of his plan, he has a plan to actually restore even after the punishment that he's going to give them. Chapter 5 is then a prophecy of the coming Messiah. What is interesting, we find out here that the Messiah will be coming from Bethlehem. So Micah actually was specific about where this Messiah is going to be coming from. It's very interesting, and we also find out that he's going to be a source of peace. And as we know today that we say Jesus is the Prince of Peace. So Micah is one of the first prophets to speak about that, which is very interesting. And it also speaks about at this time when this Messiah will be here and ruling in this new kingdom, that how their enemies will be trampled, how they will become powerful again under the rule of this new king. And this king would be coming from a line of David, which is also very interesting, that he speaks about the existence of this, how he came from a time way past. His origins are from way long ago, and we know that Jesus was Word, and he was here even before the earth was formed. And it's very interesting to just read. And then chapter 6 paints a scene of a courtroom, first asking Israel to state their case against God. Then God himself states his case, and he is relaying his history with the Israelites. What I found interesting is that he speaks with so much pain in his heart when God speaks at this point about how he carried them, how all these things that he did for them, and yet they still disobey him, yet they still don't honor him as God in their lives. And it comes off with such pain that you hear. Then of course their verdict is read in this courtroom, and it is of course a guilty verdict, and its punishment is also laid out. Then the last one is chapter 7. It speaks of the state of society at that time. It speaks about how society had been so evil and the rot that was in society. Micah speaks about the corruption and everything that was wrong, that was going wrong. And as it carries on, he shows faith in God and confidence in God's promise to restore the society and the world. He encourages Israel that God will rescue them like he had done in the olden days when he rescued them from Egypt, from slavery. That though he is angry, his love for them is greater than his anger, and he will keep his promise to Abraham and Jacob, and it will still be through them. So it's just a message of hope to them, to say that yes, all these things are going to happen, but beyond here there's hope, and everything will be restored because God has unending and he's faithful and his love for his people. And I think my verse of the day will be coming from Micah chapter 6 from verse 6 to 8. If you read here, it speaks about God does not need our offering. God does not need our best of anything that we have to offer. There's nothing that we can offer him that will be pleasant to him. What he actually wants is people that are in good standing with him. He requires people that walk right, who love mercy and are humble in their walk with him. So God is looking for character instead of our actions that are sort of meant for show. If actions are stemming from a source that is humble and is in good standing with God, then it is pleasing to him, because sacrifice is not really better than obedience. What he actually wants from us is obedience. He actually wants people, and he searches our hearts. And I think Jesus also speaks about it, that we mustn't do like the hypocrites, which were then the Pharisees, how they did everything for show, and yet their hearts were not right. So so this is sort of what these verses speak about, that God wants us to walk with him. Verses 8 specifically speaks about walking with God. So in other words, it is a relationship that God wants with us. It is a heart that shows that it is close to Him, a heart that yearns for Him and yearns for His goodness. And that is sort of the end of the 7 chapters of these 7 chapters of Micah. Thank you very much, and I can't wait to hear what everyone else has in their reading of this. And bless you all. We'll see you later in the session.